So today I want to talk about the difference between mindset work and nervous system work, okay? And this episode was inspired by a post I saw from a colleague of mine, Laura Larios, who has been on the podcast before, and you guys have maybe heard me reference her before, but she's a leader in this space. And essentially, what it comes down to from what she posted and what I gathered from it is that mindset work will help you see an opportunity. Nervous system work will determine how you capitalize on the opportunity. Okay. So, very different things. Both work, like mindset and nervous system work, are both very important when it comes to growth and success and creating more for yourself. But their purpose is different. And the reason I think it's important to talk about this is because people, I think, either confuse the two, or mindset work is pushed so heavily right now that it's, in my opinion, only a fraction of what is necessary to make things happen and to grow and evolve. Okay. And the real determinant of whether you capitalize on something and make the most of it and expand and grow and actually have real change is determinant of your nervous system. Okay. So let's start with mindset work and exactly what that is first. And then we're going to dive into the nervous system and how that's different. So, first of all, is mindset work important? Of course it is. Of course it's important. It has so much merit. And the nature of our thoughts, how we look at things, does determine um a lot of our life. And so when we're thinking about mindset work, that comes down to the nature of our thoughts. Are they more positive? Are they coming from a belief of having faith and trusting the process and and developing your mind to be able to see different perspectives and see beyond the limited scope in front of you and see bigger, and so it all is centered in the nature of your thoughts, right? Which is really important. But haven't you ever been in a situation, because I know I have, where something really shitty happens and someone goes, "Oh, just think positive." And you go, "That's the last thing I want to do right now." And even if I do want to think positive, I can't. Like, I'm trying and I can't. Like, when you go through a breakup, or maybe your house just got flooded, or maybe you got fired, like, just think positive. Like, it's not that simple. Like, and again, you could sit there being saying, "I don't want to think these thoughts. I don't want to be in this space." But no matter what you do, you can't override it, right? And there's a physiological reason for that, which is what I'm going to get into, which is what nervous system work is, okay? But you know, I just want to highlight that because I think sometimes when people get into a really crappy situation and then they can't switch those thoughts up into something positive, they think something's wrong with you. And I'm about to explain why there's nothing wrong with you. Okay. The other side of that, though, is I think it's very dangerous and detrimental to your well being and health and quality of life when you bypass the reality of your experience. Okay. And so if you go through something upsetting, if you go through a breakup, if you just got fired, if to just sit there and say, "Oh, it's okay, everything happens for a reason." Like, okay, maybe you're going to get to that point. That's the goal. But when it first happens, no, you're supposed to be angry. You're supposed to be sad. You're supposed to be like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? And if you don't, you're either not being real, so you're wearing a mask, which does not serve the purpose. It honestly makes the healing process a lot harder. And B, it's it's not gonna help at all. Like, it's literally you lying to yourself. Of you just like pretending that none of that's real. And that can manifest into so many worse things when you don't express your true emotions. That leads to autoimmune disease, that leads to cancer in the body. Like, that negligence towards yourself and that denial of yourself and your reality and your truth has way more harmful effects long term on a physical, mental, and emotional level than just acknowledging for the moment that, like, yeah, I'm mad. I'm mad. I'm sad. They hurt me. I can't believe they did this. Like, allowing yourself to have that experience for the time being is way more healthy for your process than trying to pretend that everything thing just happens for a reason and I'm just going to be positive. Okay? Now, let's get to why it is so difficult to just switch up your thoughts in the moment. Okay? So let's run with an example. Let's just say you went through a breakup. Okay? And obviously you're hurt. Maybe you're with this person for a while, and then the way they broke up with you was awful and like so disrespectful, or you feel disrespected at least, and you're like, you're just upset. And then part of and then your friends just go, oh well, it's not a big deal, you were better off without him anyways, and they're trying to like hype you up and gas you up because they're your friends, and you're like this is the best thing that could have happened to you, and you're like, okay, but it doesn't feel that way. And then they're like, just think positive. Now you're single. Now you get to find the person that's actually right for you. Like, this is a good thing. And there's probably part of you that wishes you could jump to that place, but then you're also like, but no, I'm mad. Like, and again, consciously, it might be a few weeks later, even a few months later, and you're like, why can't I just view this more positively? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Okay. So let's talk about the nervous system for a minute. Now, I talk about specifically the autonomic nervous system. There's multiple channels of the nervous system. It's very complex and does multiple things in your body. But for today's conversation, I'm going to talk about the autonomic nervous system, and I'm going to interchange nervous system with the body. Okay. And that's just to keep it really simple because, again, it can get complex. I'm not trying to confuse you guys. I'm just trying to help you guys understand a point. Okay. So I'm going to use the body and the nervous system kind of interchangeably. Okay. But essentially, the autonomic nervous system is responsible for all the things that you do automatically to keep you alive that you don't have to think about. So your ability to breathe, to pump blood through your system, to respond to stress, to come down from stress, all these things that you don't have to actively think about but are constantly happening in your body. That's the autonomic nervous system. Okay. Now, that part of your nervous system, its sole purpose is to keep you alive. Okay. So, what it does in every millisecond of the day is it's constantly scanning your environment for threat. Okay. Everywhere you go, everything you do, is this safe? Is this dangerous? Is this safe? Is it dangerous? It's constantly analyzing. And then what it does is it determines whether something's dangerous or not based on a set of information that's already stored in your nervous system or in your body. Okay. So it will say either, oh, I've been here before. I know this is a safe space. I'm at my mom's house and she's cooking for me. Naturally, if, assuming you grew up with having a good relationship with your mom, or, you're in good standing, when I go to my mom's house, I naturally feel more comforted. I naturally feel more relaxed because I know she and I have a relationship of her being very nurturing. If you go to a place where you maybe didn't have that same response, maybe you go to a restaurant where when you were 5 years old, you got spanked. Okay, let's just say this is a restaurant you went and something happened and you got a spanking at 5 years old. And then now, as a 30-year-old, you revisit that same restaurant. Your nervous system's going to go in there. It's going to step in that environment, and it could go, I've been here before. And the last time I was here, I got spanked. So I'm going to be a little bit more on edge. How do I make sure I get out of here being like quote unquote still alive? Even though a spanking's not going to, obviously it didn't kill you. But the point being that there is uh, a quote unquote negative imprint on your nervous system from that environment. Okay. So as you go throughout your days, your nervous system's constantly scanning these things. And again, any data it has is going to determine how your body responds to that moment. Do I need to put the body into being on defense and being prepared for something bad to happen, which is essentially survival mode? Or am I safe to relax and be myself and be a little bit more vulnerable, be more joyful, etc. Right? So that's what it's constantly determining all day. Now, going back to the mindset piece and the nerve and the whole point of this conversation. When we go through something traumatic, so again, if we're going through the breakup scenario, if we think about what a breakup means, essentially that's a loss a ending of a relationship, which is grief. And whenever we go through that, there's a sense of rejection. Even if we know it's the best thing, even if we know we aren't supposed to be with that person, there is a level of rejection and discomfort that questions our safety, right? And maybe not safety on a physical standpoint, but safety on an emotional and intellectual level, you know? And the nervous system processes both the same. Whether it's a physical threat or an emotional threat, it's still a threat to your survival. Okay. So going through this breakup, now what happens? My nervous system goes, okay, I need to protect her. I need to do whatever I can to keep her alive. So I'm going to put her into a dysregulated state, which means I am now in survival mode and I'm going to do whatever I can to protect myself. So this could be, when you don't have an appetite maybe after something traumatic like that. That's because the body's saying we don't have energy to digest food because we have to be ready to run, we have to be ready to fight, we have to be ready to flight, we have to be ready to freeze, right? So these are default stress responses. So essentially what happens, I'll touch on that, is when you get triggered by something that's a threat to your system, you're either going to go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Okay. Now, I don't talk about fawning as much because fawning is a learned behavior. They've determined it's not a physiological response, meaning your body doesn't automatically know how to do that. We all learn to fawn. And at its simplest form, fawning is just people pleasing. I'm going to say what I need to say. I'm going to entertain these people. I'm going to look however I need to look to get out of this situation and feel safe. Okay. But fight, flight, and freeze are responses that our body actually inherently automatically knows how to do. Okay. So when you're in this situation, again, we go to the breakup. I'll just use me, for example. When it comes to personal relationships, when I get triggered, I typically go into freeze, which means I shut down. Okay. And I could still be feeling all the anxiety and feeling all the stress, but I go into a freeze mode. Okay. Now, what happens when you go into one of these responses? It means you're now dysregulated and you are in survival mode. And when you're dysregulated, your body goes, we are going to take energy away from any of the systems that we don't need to survive in this moment. Okay. So we don't need to be digesting food right now. Nope. We don't need to be relaxed because what if we got to run? And the most important one, which ties back to this topic of mindset work, is there's a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. And that part of your brain is what's necessary for critical thinking, creative thinking, problem solving. Okay. So that part of your brain that you use to access all those brilliant things shuts down because the nervous system goes, I don't need her to do all those things if I have to run away from this threat. Okay. So literally in this moment of this breakup, my body's going, I'm going to shut down the part of her brain that allows her to think positively. Okay. I'm going to shut it down because she doesn't need to think positive right now. She just needs to survive. And I say this all the time. The nervous system does not care if you're happy. It doesn't care if you're at peace. It doesn't even care if you're growing or successful. The nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, only cares if you're alive, whether you're miserable or not. Okay. So this is why when you go through these situations, everyone's just like, think positive, see the goodness, blah, blah, blah. You're like, why can't I? It's because the part of your brain that allows you to do that has shut down. It shut down. We don't need that. Okay. So don't judge yourself if all of a sudden you can't just snap out of it. There's a reason. And now here's the other point that's really powerful about this. So there's a rule that when it comes to the amount of information that gets processed through us as a human, 80% gets absorbed and processed by the body, 20% gets absorbed by the mind. Okay. Which means as humans, we kind of think we're always taking in information through the brain. And yes, there's again, that is happening, but the nervous system doesn't just exist in the brain. The nervous system exists throughout the entire body. So there's sensors all over our body that are constantly taking in information. And again, 80% of that goes through the body part, your nervous system, and 20% goes through your mind. So when people are talking about doing mindset work and shifting up your thoughts and your beliefs, if you really actually want to be effective with shifting your overall state, which means going from feeling sad to maybe feeling more at peace, or going from feeling angry to feeling more calm, it's actually more effective to use your body or your nervous system because it controls 80% of the impact, where your mind only controls 20. So thinking positive thoughts, mindset work, can it work? Yes. But if you're only working with 20% of the horses versus 80% of the horses, which one's going to take longer? Right? So now let's go back to my original sentiment. Mindset works. Mindset work will allow you to see the opportunity. Nervous system work determines how you capitalize on it. Okay? So with the nervous system, the goal is to always expand your capacity. What does that mean? Is every single one of us, based on the conditioning, the experiences we went through, we have a threshold of what our baseline is for our nervous system to get into a balanced state. And all balanced means is that you can feel safe in the present moment. I know there's no threat. I can let my guards down and I can feel safe in the moment. I don't have to get stuck worrying about the past or thinking about the future. I can just be really present with where I'm at, the people I'm with, and enjoy and be grateful for the moments. Okay. If you have trouble doing that consistently, that means you're dysregulated consistently. Okay. But the point of nervous system work is to expand your capacity so that when stressors come, because obviously we can't eliminate stress, we are all going to be continuously experiencing stress throughout life. That's just the reality. When stress comes, your body can process it in a way so that you don't have to stay dysregulated all the time. Now, this is what it means, though, to understand how to get your nervous system working for you versus against you. Because like I said earlier, the nervous system doesn't care if you're happy, healthy, growing, etc., which means that if it's set for purely survival, it's actually going to prevent you from growing because it wants to keep you safe. Safety and growth don't go hand in hand. We've all heard that the growth exists outside of your comfort zone. If you stay in your comfort zone all the time, you're never expanding your horizons. You're never expanding what you're capable of, and not expanding again your capacity. Okay? So how we expand our capacity, or what that really means is the level of what triggers you increases. And you can look at that in a basic way. So just look at something as like again, like a kid versus an adult. So as a child, as a 10-year-old, if someone comes and maybe says, no, you can't have this, that feels dysregulating to you. I want the ice cream. Why? You maybe cry, you maybe get upset. Why? I want the ice cream. As a 25-year-old, if someone says, no, you can't have ice cream, okay, probably shouldn't have it anyways. This sugar's not good for me. You know what I mean? Like it's not dysregulating because your capacity has expanded, right? Meaning your understanding of that of that quote unquote conflict is not a threat as a 25-year-old versus what it was as a 10-year-old, right? Your understanding, your ability to process that quote unquote stress has grown. Your capacity has grown, right? So when we bring that same idea back to the opportunity, again, the mind can identify the opportunity, but the nervous system determines whether you can capitalize on it. So if your nervous system is so dysregulated that you can't hold a conversation without getting offended, that you can't sit still and sustain eye contact with someone and be present with someone in the moment, if your nervous system is shot to the point where uh your energy is always split because you're ruminating on the past or thinking about the future, how do you expect to capitalize on any opportunity in front of you? Right? Because you're not going to be able to be present with it. You're not going to be able to handle whatever stresses may come. And if we're thinking about it, Opportunity arises to make us grow, and whether that be professionally or personally, you know what I mean? Like, it only shows up when we're at a point where we could potentially handle it, but then it always shows up to test us. It doesn't show up typically as a walk in the park. The universe brings it saying, okay, she's done enough work, we're gonna give her a shot here, but she's still gonna have to show when she takes the shot what she's gonna do with it. You know what I mean? And like, for me, the example that always comes up is, and again, this can be business, this can be personal, but for me, I think of personal is like the partner I have now, like my boyfriend now, the version of me a year ago wouldn't have capitalized on the opportunity. Like, if we would have met then, like, could we have made it? Possibly. Would there have been a lot more challenges? Yeah, because my capacity for what it is to have a relationship, the type of relationship I wanted, even though I consciously wanted it, my nervous system wasn't adapted for it. And there's multiple reasons for that. I was starting a new business. I was now self-employed. I was coming out of a 9-year career, and I'm dating for marriage. So then now it's like, when I'm dating, I'm very intentional with who I'm spending time with. And it's like, if you're not preparing yourself for those opportunities by expanding your nervous system, it's going to feel threatening. Right. And then you go, can I handle this? This is where the self-sabotage comes in. Oh my God, well, maybe this person isn't right for me. Well, he does this, he does that. Or, you look for all the faults because you have this negative bias because you're in survival mode. If you're dysregulated, that's going to happen. But if you take the time to learn how your nervous system works, and then when that challenge arises or when that opportunity arises, you can walk yourself through it without blowing it up, without sabotaging it, that again determines whether you capitalize on the opportunity or not. Okay. So this is why I'm so passionate about nervous system work, because again, mindset is important, but it's only a fraction of the equation when it comes to actual growth and success. And this is why I see so many burnt out people, because they rely on their mindset and their resilience to push them through. And good on you. Like it will get you so far. It will. But we have all have a far greater machine within our body that is built to take us to higher heights and do more things and live more present and joyful and peaceful lives. But we need to know how to get the unit working for us. And the reason we need to get it working for us and why it's so important that we know how to use this machine is because more than ever are we being inundated with stressors. Like, if we go back to our ancestors who were just living in tribes, which is where our nervous system is adapted from, like we haven't evolved much from living in caves as far as from a nervous system perspective. When you think about people at that time, their version of a threat was really just physical. They lived in nature, and if a bear chased them, that was the threat. And so, but when the bear stopped chasing them, the threats went away. They went back to living in nature and being in the sun and being grounded and all these things. They didn't worry about running businesses. They didn't have to worry about seeing images of war on their phone. They didn't have to worry about working out 3 to 4 times a week to keep up with all these beauty standards. And they didn't have to worry about the kids, the car, the keeping up with the Joneses, which are all stressors. They didn't have to worry about cancel culture and saying the wrong thing and not agreeing with people's political views. Like, these are not things that their nervous systems had to deal with. And our nervous system hasn't evolved much past that time, yet we're being hit with all these stressors 24/7. So, because of the environment we're now living in, this is why you have to learn to get the nervous system working for you versus against you, because we haven't dealt with this level of stress before. This is unprecedented. Even though it's not physical, it's emotional and psychological. And how the heck do I sort through all this? And so, if you don't know how to use your nervous system, you're going to see in a constant state of dysregulation. I see it all the time. I lived it. That was me. And I still actively, with all the work I've done, I still actively have to know how to regulate myself, because I get to a good point and then it becomes deeper, and I feel my nervous system in a different way than I ever have before. And I know how to get ahead of things so I never have to get back to that place where I feel like I was being hit by a bus every single day. Okay. So again, when it comes to expanding your horizons, growing, designing a life that actually feels good to you and success on your terms, it takes both. It takes mindset and it takes nervous system work. But again, back to the 80/20 rule, like if you're trying to do it from mindset alone, it's going to take you a lot longer. It's going to be a lot harder. And and if you don't get your nervous system on board with whatever your mindset work is geared towards, the nervous system will just keep overriding it because the body is more carries more of that weight. And so you might get to a place where you're thinking positively, and then if the nervous system goes, "No, I don't have a good feeling about this. I don't have a good memory or data on this environment or this situation or this thing. I'm going to shut you down." And then it overrides the mind, it overrides the prefrontal cortex, and you go into survival thoughts, which means doom, fear, scarcity, what could go wrong, the negative biases, they take over because the nervous system goes, "No, I'm shutting this down." Where if when this situation arises, you can get your nervous system to go, "Okay, this feels a little unfamiliar, but I'm going to learn to regulate myself through it. I'm going to learn to I'm going to show my nervous system that this is actually safe for us to take. This opportunity is safe for us to do." Now you can teach your nervous system as you're taking steps towards it to not get dysregulated. And then as you teach your nervous system to do that, it goes, "Oh, okay, this isn't so bad. I can handle being here. I can handle talking to these people. I can handle trying this new project." And then what happens is as you regulate your nervous system, as you go through this, you now raise the plateau of your baseline. Now, what was once threatening to your nervous system becomes adaptable and part of your safety zone. And this is what growth is. This is what allows you to capitalize on an opportunity. This is what allows you to make things happen. But what I see so often in high performers specifically is they'll still push through and make something happen, but they'll feel dysregulated the whole time. Okay. But then what that does is every time they go to do that, there's a level of anxiety and overwhelm and fear underneath the surface that happens and they push through it. So kudos to you for being resilient. But then that's where burnout happens because that's a not sustainable strategy. And eventually you get to a point where you're irritable, you're impatient, you you hate the world, you feel guilty all the time and you're like, "Why am I even doing this? Like, is this all there is to life?" I had gotten to that point, right? So I'm going to keep this short and sweet, but if you really want to live a life that feels successful on your terms, and that can be my all the traditional ways as far as making money, having all the things, traveling, having freedom, etc. And that also just means being at peace and enjoying the people that you love and being present in the moment and your body feeling healthy and you get a good night's sleep and your gut feels good and your skin's clear and you can laugh and be grateful in the moment and no one's pissing you off. Like success can be both of those, right? But it takes a regulated nervous system to do it. And I will die on that hill because that is how we were designed. That is how our bodies have been living for years. But again, today's society requires us to do more regulating in our nervous system than we ever have done. And it's nice to see nervous system talk is becoming more popular. It is really great to see that. Um, but it is a very important piece of the pie if you just really want to live a life that you feel happy and peaceful and content with. So, if you have more questions on this, please DM me. I love having these conversations. LinkedIn, Instagram, you know where to find me. But yeah, the new luxury is a regulated nervous system. And when you do that, you will be shocked at what can happen in your life.